our next speaker for our first day of this 3-day summit is the amazing Rob Petrini. I've known Rob for about 5 years and he is a great leader. He is the pastor, senior pastor at the Hutt City Baptist Church and has led multiple churches around. But he has also been heavily involved in Arrow leadership, where he's been a trainer for the last 8 years. In that role, he has been training young and emerging leaders from all over the place, particularly in the area of personal vision. So welcome, Rob.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you today. Okay, so our first question for everybody is, what do you see are the current challenges in the education system?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I mean, the current challenges is facing an ever evolving and changing world and trying to keep up with it. Trying to anticipate, what are the challenges that the next generation of young people are going to be facing. And it's changing so quickly that, it's hard to keep up with. That's just the reality of it. And so how do you prepare young people and ultimately young leaders to face the challenges that are ever evolving? For us, our computers when we were at school were black screens with green writing, and that was about as cool as they came. Today, we're talking about VR and quantum physics, and it's just a whole new world, and it changes almost daily. So how do you prepare young minds to deal with constant and continual change? I think that's the biggest challenge within the education system.
Mm-hmm. And it's very hard for the teachers to be able to learn at that pace enough to be able to then teach it, and to have the system change alongside that. It makes it even more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. So our next question, Rob, then is around, what do you wish that you had learnt at school?
I'm a practical guy, so I think there were a lot of real practical life skills that I don't feel school had prepared us for, whether it was budget management, conflict management, all the things that interactions with people in general. And we learned calculus, we learned algebra, we learned geography, which were all great subjects, enjoyed every bit of it, but the reality is the practicalities of life weren't. And so it was down to experience. And I think there's a lot of value in experience, but there's also a lot of value in being prepared for what you're about to face. So I think people skills in particular, how do you manage environments in which you need to interact with people? I don't think schools were at my time doing a good job of that. And I think also resilience in regards to a changing world. It was a long time when I was back at school. So, but even so, the evolving change of the world around us, we weren't prepared for that. And so again, it came down to experience that has served many people well, but it's also not served others not so well.
Yes, and you had the experience within 2 different education systems, didn't you? Because you started the schooling in Australia and then finished in Italy. So you've got that experience of those 2 different education systems. And then with your children, you've seen education systems in several different countries. So you're bringing this background of what you've seen. Yeah,
and it's fascinating. I mean, in Australia, going to a school, we had school uniforms and, a very rigid environment. Going to Italy then, and no school uniforms. You showed up, you left. Both systems were good for in their own way, but both lacked that ability to be able to face what we all face when you leave school. What do I do now? Where do I go? How do I handle this? I remember in the States when we first got married, I was given a checkbook and I was like, what do I do with this? No one taught me how to work that one out, or how to open a bank account, or I think in the past we relied on our parents to teach us this skill, but more and more kids are growing up with either broken families or families that are detached, and so that learning experience is lost on some of these young people, and so they're relying on the system to help them through that, and the system is failing them. I think, yeah.
Mm. And that's, you have that perspective as well, because you know a huge number of people from a really wide range of backgrounds. And so this, you're not talking about everybody. There are some students who are lucky enough to still be having those experiences at home,
Yeah.
but you're seeing more and more that who do not.
Yeah, and more of us as parents who have kind of flown by the seat of our pants in a sense, have learned from our own mistakes, but feel like we want to empower our kids to make their own call, and actually that could be damaging as well. Not walking alongside them when they really need us to be. There is no school for parenting, is there?
And even once you write the instruction manual for the first child, it doesn't work for the second one, and so on and so forth. So, and then things change again. So all of this is really, really good, because what it comes back to is the importance of having that personal vision. So you teach emerging leaders to develop this personal vision. What is it, and why do we need one?
It's fascinating. So normally when I sit people in the class, so the first moment, I get them to breathe, do the breathing exercises, breathe in deeply, exhale, clear your minds, and then I hit them with the first question, which is, in 6 words, describe yourself. And it's a fascinating experiment in a sense to see what they write. But for the most part, when we're challenged to write ourselves a description of ourselves in 6 words, we're actually usually quite positive about ourselves. We see potential. So we usually talk about the good things about us, and we usually use one word, like an adjective. So 6 one words, basically. For example, they would say, if you're a Strength Finders fan, you'd be throwing those out: motivator, activator, communicator. Some of us who are a little bit more, adventurous, we might say, are bold and, articulate, or whatever it might be. We kind of see these things. And even if those skills or those characteristics aren't being displayed in our lives today, we see the potential of who we are. So, for example, I would say I'm an activator, but if I'm not experiencing, an environment where I can actually fully realize my activator skills, I still see myself as an activator, because I can see in the future I can actually be that person. So it's really interesting when I get them to write 6 words about, describing themselves. Then I get them to stop and breathe again, and just clear their minds. And then I hit them with the second question, and that is, in 6 words, write your memoir. And the change is amazing. All of a sudden, we're not using just words. They try to actually complete a sentence in 6 words. And for the most part, it's negative. They look at what they haven't done, or what they haven't accomplished. So, words like unrealized potential, or seeking, or finding, or trying, these words will pop up in this sentence. And for the most part, it's because most of us have really unrealized potential. And for those of us who are old enough, we start to think, well, that unrealized potential is diminishing. And so what have I really accomplished in life? And that really comes down to the basic fact that most people don't have a personal vision, so they don't know what to measure that memoir off. If they haven't actually kind of articulated, this is what I'm actually about, this is who I am, and this is what I'm seeking to be or become, all of a sudden they start to think of achievements rather than becoming. So personal vision is important, because it gives you a roadmap to who you are as a person. It's not actually about how am I going to achieve life. It's actually who am I becoming in life. If you look at companies, and most leaders that I coach will be able to rattle off without hesitation, the vision of the company that they work for, the organization. It just comes straight off their heads, and they know the direction that the organization is going. They understand the boundaries in which they're working within to keep focus on the vision. But then when you ask them personally, well, what's your vision? They just kind of look at me blank. Well, I'm looking to become a manager. I want to become this. And it's actually based on achievements rather than actually becoming who they are as a person. I've got a quote here from Bernard Hayes, who's the CEO of Lead to Impact. He puts it really well, and I use this a lot in in my own seminars. He says this: your personal vision is your GPS that guides you to the destination designed for your life. It ensures you stay focused on your vision's plan, and you don't get involved in anything or anyone that might sidetrack you from it. It is your guiding light to lead you through the storms and obstacles that will challenge your direction. So whereas companies are very intentional about making sure that they stay within the scope of their vision, we tend to get kind of blown around by the winds of life, and end up in any all sorts of direction because an opportunity might open up over here, or because a friend has recommended we go there, or work is kind of trying to box you into this area. And what suffers then is your own personal vision. And many people will wake up later in life thinking, oh, what's going on? Who am I? Either you're stuck in a job that you find you can't get out of, or you are jumping from job to job, experiencing the thrill of something new, but then very quickly getting old and tired, and you're seeking the next thrill, basically.
That's really interesting, because what I'm hearing you say is that the people that you're talking to, when you're talking with them about what they're doing, they're looking for, again, those achievements, those markers along the way. And I'm wondering if there is a link with the content focus, the work focus, the sort of the disjointed from our beings that is so much a part of our education system and our work life. Whereas it sounds like through creating this personal vision, you're creating your life. That your vision is all encompassing. It includes work, it includes family, it includes where you might be living, it includes all of those sorts of things.
It's a holistic view of, and that's the problem. You go to university and you study to be something or someone, and that's not necessarily you. It's this box that the uni or the school or the tertiary educational system is telling you, this is what you need to do to become this, and you forego parts of you to be that. It should actually be the other way around. How does that fit into who I am as a person? Again, in coaching young leaders, I stress to them, you're not just being interviewed for the job, you're interviewing the job for you. A lot of young people in particular will look at the job and say, oh, I'm getting paid $100,000. Man, that's awesome. Or I'm going to get to do this, this, and this. But that gets old very quick. And if you're in a job that is just not fulfilling who you are, you'll find you'll compromise yourself to the point where you're not yourself anymore. And the day you wake up and say, oh, what's going on? You're at a stage in life where it becomes even more difficult to change that environment.
And so it's really, really important to be able to take that time to be able to think about who you are. I too have seen numerous times where people have been stuck in a job where their values don't match and the purpose doesn't match. And you end up an empty shell of a person in so many ways. And that's what I've seen. So
it's the foundation for it. You really need to know yourself. And that's tough, because some of us don't like to look inwardly and see who we are. So I usually encourage our leaders to do everything, anything and everything. Certain things are good for certain environments. DISC is a very important tool for you to understand, how do I work within the workplace? How do I interact with other people? Something like the Enneagram could be something that you could look inwardly, spiritually. How am I reacting to myself? Why do I have these traits? How do I react to certain things? Strength finders, again, is something different, or Myers-Briggs. I mean, you need to jump into these things, because they all give you a nugget or an understanding of a part of you. And then you'll start to see a trend that comes out, and that's very clear. I find that understanding how you were raised is really important. For me, in the DISC profile, I'm a DI, capital D and a little I. But why am I like that? And I realized that when I was growing up, my father had this high expectations of how I was to live, and so I had to get straight A's. And if I didn't get straight A's, you'd be disappointed. So I equated love to succeeding. And I equated to lack of love when I failed. So that shaped me in so many ways that I realize now that the way I'm acting is based on how I was raised in that way. So the capital D is me wanting to succeed and making sure that that happens. And the little I is that part of me that wants to please people and be interacting with people. And I think it's fundamental in understanding yourself, why you are the way you are. But it goes even deeper than that to say, why am I here? What am I about? What actually makes me me? Because we're all unique, we're all different, and that self-awareness is very important in understanding then what it is that's going to shape my future. And yeah, it sets our direction. It inspires us in so many ways, and when we dampen that, it is when the troubles begin in our lives, I think.
Okay, so we're leading into the next part, which is about that self-awareness, isn't it? So
Yeah.
how important is developing that self-awareness for developing a personal vision? That inspiration as well gives us energy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which then helps to propel us forward. And I know the number of times over the last few years, I mean, that I've started to really, really understand vision, and it's like the possibilities become endless. And what's even more exciting is being able to look back on that and be able to see, wow, you've achieved that and you've achieved that when you didn't even think that it was possible. And
Yeah.
that's purely out of vision. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I tell our young leaders, there's three reasons why you need to have, a personal vision statement. The first one is direction. If you look at for example, a football team like Liverpool, which is my team, they for 30 years have been wanting to win, the Premier League, and so they build everything to get to that point. And the roadmap to it is exciting. You set out your plan, you look forward to it, and you work towards that, because that's where you want to be. That's who you want to be. And you don't allow other things around you to distract you from it. You might win other accolades here and there, and they're all great and all, but the goal is the goal. This is who we want to be. So direction is a really important understanding for us as people in general. Everyone's going to give us advice on how to live. Everyone's going to be happily having an opinion about what we should or shouldn't do. Our workplace, our parents, our spouses, our friends. But if you allow them to shape you, you end up becoming an image of them rather than of yourself. Your direction, your roadmap is what tells you, yeah, I'll take what I can and I'll let go of what I need to let go of. It's also about self-care, because life is a long journey. It's not a short, sharp, intense boom. It's a long road, and a lot of people burn out along the way because they're trying to be something that they're really not, for the most part. So self-care is really important, because you learn to say no. You learn to say no to the things that actually, as much as that would be fun or great or interesting, it's actually taking away the energy that I need to keep going down this road path, this roadmap that I have before me. And lastly, that inspiration thing's really important. When we finally get to the end of towards the end of a session that we've been working, and usually it's a full day session, we're writing out our personal vision statements. And then the thing that I tell them is, it's got to inspire you. It's got to just tug at the heart and say, yes, this is who I am. And the moment you start to wane, you read it and it says, yeah, no, actually, what am I doing? This is me. This is what I need to be focused on. And that kind of redirects you back onto that path. Yeah.
That's really interesting as well, that question around, does it inspire you? Does it motivate you? Because the stories that I've heard as well is that if it doesn't motivate you, then what else do you need to add? Does it motivate you? 10 out of 10 now. Does it inspire you? Then add. Yeah. The next thing that I've had as a result of that was being told, okay, this really inspires you. What are you prepared to do to get it? And almost like going, okay, these are the steps that I'm prepared to take. Is it I'm going to make sure that I get enough exercise and actually plan about how I'm going to do that, or making sure that I get enough sleep, or meeting with particular people but what are 3 things that I'm prepared to do in order to get it? And the other question for that is, what am I prepared to stop doing in order to be able to
That's
do it?
very good, Kathy. That's very good. I mean, I use the analogy of being in a plane that's about to crash. You know, I was on a flight from Mumbai to Singapore many years ago, and you know, when the plane took off, it took off in a storm, and for 10-15 minutes, everyone is holding on to those seat rests like there is no tomorrow, thinking, are we going to get through this? And about 10 to 15 minutes into the flight, it hit an air pocket, and the plane just dropped, and all the gas masks came out. Everyone was screaming. There was no announcement from the pilot, and in that moment, everything goes through your head. We're going to die, and if I'm going to die, how can I die right now? I've got all these things I want to do and be, and all of a sudden, all the important things in your life in that moment come out. Family, experiences that I've missed. And that plane finally did land okay, obviously, because I wouldn't be here if not. But the first thing I did when I got off that plane was, all those things that were in my head, I wrote them down. These are the important things in my life. These are the things I care about. Because in that moment, you're not going to think about, I want to be the CEO of a company, or I want to get better KPIs so that I can ace my next. These aren't things that generally come straight to our minds. There are other things, and that actually forms part of your personal vision statement. So with our back to the walls, what is it that you really do actually care about? I care about growing leaders, deeply. So I will make the time and effort to make that happen. I will train myself. I will be reading a lot of things, even when I'm not in the mood to read. I will educate myself. I will challenge myself to be a good leader so that I can help grow other leaders. That's the thing that we care about. And so, yeah, really good points, Kathy.
So there's a whole lot of questions that you were asking on the way through here. Things like, what are 6 words that describe you? What are 6 sentences, 6 words that you would write as a memoir? What gives you, what matters to you? What are the things that matter to you? What are some of the other questions that people ask in framing that personal vision? It's that process.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of questions you can ask. What do I care about? Strip everything away from my life. What are the things, if I can only choose 3 things in my life right now that I could keep, what would they be? If I had only 3 things I could do, what would those 3 things be? And what you're doing is just stripping away all the added extras to get to the very core of what actually floats your boat. What gives you contentment, purpose. For myself, I narrowed it down to I find a thrill, a joy in being able to teach and speak and share experiences with people and see the rush of the people's eyes kind of lighting up and saying, oh, I get that, and seeing their lives change. And so as a pastor, both spiritually and in our life, see people's lives just kind of change that little bit. I also have a deep love for my family. So actually, any job I do, I have to keep my eyes focused on my family and friends because they are core for me. And interestingly, as you grow and understand what the things are that help you, the things that you love. For me, for example, it's travel. I've written into my job contract that I have 2 weeks a year in which I'm allowed to travel. It's not actually part of my holiday time. It's something that I've negotiated with my current employers to say, okay, you want me here. This is what I'm going to need. I need 2 weeks a year, 1 week in the middle of, between each other, that I'm going to get on a plane and just fly somewhere. Because that floats my boat. I just want to meet people. I want to engage with cultures. I want to engage with diversity. So I need that freedom. And yeah, I mean, that's by understanding who I am. And again, it's just stripping away all the added extras that are around you and saying, what are the core things that I care about? So some basic questions. What are the three things that if I were only three things I was allowed to do, what would you want them to do? If I was in a prison cell and I was asked to have three things, what would I ask for? You know, those are the things that you actually really do care about. They're the things that you really do hold on to. And so how do I fit them into my personal vision? Yeah.
And this is a really good thing to be able to do by oneself. One has to really do this by oneself, doesn't
Yeah.
because there's when we're around other people, there's so much pressure, particularly for young people. There's so much pressure to conform with the group that we're in. And one of the things I'm hearing my youngest son say quite a lot is, you do you. And I think that there's this freedom coming out within the young people, which is about you do you, you be you, you do who you need to do, and you be what you need to be. And that's quite liberating in and of itself. In order to do you or to be you, you actually need to have that time to think, don't you?
Yeah. And some of it's difficult, you know, some of it is deeply difficult. You know, we talk about gender bias. So if I've got a room full of women, I ask them, you know, what has the world stopped you from being or stopped you from doing? Acknowledge that, write it down. You know, I want to be this, but I was held up because I'm a woman, or because I'm gay, or because I'm this, or because I'm that, and the world has kind of minimized or marginalized me. You need to acknowledge that. You need to actually own that and say, you know, that first of all, it's not right, but how do I actually engage now with who I am and who I'm becoming, and how can what can I put in place to overcome those obstacles? The important aspect of our training is to acknowledge what are those things that have stopped you from being you. And today, you know, we're in a world now that's far more open to allowing people to be people, which is absurd to think about that in the 21st century, but it's really where we're at. And yeah, generally, especially the gender issue, I think most people have not really realized how difficult it has been, especially for women who have had to work twice as hard to be even half the people that they're hoping to be. And being able to vocalize that in a group setting is actually very important. Yeah.
We have a speaker who's speaking about navigating that LGBTQI plus journey later today. So that will be fantastic to be able to hear, what she's bringing into the conversation as well. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts today, Rob. It's wonderful to hear the stories of the people that you've been working with and how important that having that personal vision is. And thank you for giving us some of those other questions to be able to help people to reflect on where they want to be and where they want to go. And actually, as I was hearing that last part of it is shaping again also, what does success look like for each of us? Because we have so many of these external forces that this is what success is like. And in the schooling system, success is passing these exams or passing NCEA or, you know, getting a good job, etc. But actually, as part of your vision, you're looking at what does success look like to you?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much, Kathy.